Welcome to EtherLink AI Insights. I'm Alex, and today we're diving into something that's reshaping how enterprises operate across Europe: Agentic AI and multi-agent orchestration, specifically through the lens of 2026 and what's happening in Utrecht. Sam, thanks for being here. This is a topic that feels urgent, especially with EU regulations tightening up.
Thanks, Alex. It really is urgent. And honestly, most organizations I talk to are underestimating the complexity. We're not talking about chatbots anymore. We're talking about autonomous systems making real decisions with minimal human intervention. And if you're operating in the EU, the AI Act isn't some distant concern. It's here, it's operational, and it's reshaping what compliant actually means.
Right, so let's start with the basics. What exactly is Agentic AI, and how is it different from what we've been doing with large language models for the past couple of years?
Great question. Traditional LLMs are essentially sophisticated response systems. You ask them something, they generate an answer. Agentic AI flips that model. These systems reason through problems, they plan iteratively, they call tools, they learn from failures, and they keep going until they solve the problem or hit a boundary condition. In Utrecht's logistics and financial sectors, we're seeing agents autonomously handle invoice processing, optimize supply chains, flag compliance risks, things that used to require human eyes every step of the way. The agent figures out what needs to happen, does it, checks the result, and adapts if something goes wrong.
That's a pretty significant leap. So if a single agent can do all that, why is multi-agent orchestration such a big deal? Why not just deploy one super powerful agent?
Because real enterprise problems aren't solved by one perspective. Think about approving a loan. You need one agent checking regulatory compliance. Did we follow lending laws? Another agent evaluating financial risk. Is this creditworthy? A third protecting data privacy. Are we handling personal information correctly? Each agent is specialized, each has different constraints, and they need to communicate without stepping on each other's decisions. That's orchestration. It's the governance layer that manages those conversations and ensures transparency and accountability.
I see. So orchestration is really about control and visibility. You're not just letting agents run wild, you're creating a framework where their interactions are monitored and human meaningful. Is that fair?
Exactly. And in the EU context, that's non-negotiable. The AI Act doesn't just say, be transparent, it demands specific conformity assessments, documented decision chains, and defined intervention points where humans must review what the AI did. Orchestration is where governance becomes operational rather than theoretical.
Speaking of the EU AI Act, that's probably the biggest regulatory pressure for Utrecht enterprises right now. What does compliance actually look like in practice, especially for companies deploying multi-agent systems?
The Act uses a risk-based framework. Most multi-agent systems in banking, insurance, or healthcare are classified as high risk, which is where things get real. You need third-party audits of your system design and training data. You need complete technical documentation showing how compliance actually works. You need defined human oversight points, not vague ones, but specific places where a person must review and potentially override an agent decision. And you're doing post-market monitoring continuously. It's not a one-time checkbox, it's an ongoing operational requirement.
So essentially, you can't deploy first and figure out compliance later. You need to build it in from the start.
Absolutely. And here's the thing, McKinsey's recent research shows 78% of enterprises struggling with agentic deployments cite error management, security integration, and regulatory compliance as their main pain points. That's not coincidental. These companies often tried to build first and bolt on governance later, and that's incredibly expensive to fix. Utrecht enterprises that get ahead of this, that actually architect compliance into the orchestration layer from day one, have a genuine competitive advantage.
That makes sense. Now, one of the topics in the guide is RAG evaluation, retrieval augmented generation. Why does that matter for multi-agent systems specifically?
RAG is how agents ground themselves in reality. An agent without RAG is like a person making decisions without access to current information. It'll hallucinate or guess. RAG lets agents retrieve relevant documents, data, or previous decisions before they act. But in production, you need to be rigorous about evaluating whether the RAG is actually working. Is it retrieving the right documents? Is the agent using that information correctly? Is it missing critical context? For high-risk domains like healthcare or finance, evaluation isn't optional. It's a compliance requirement. You need to demonstrate that your agent's knowledge foundation is reliable.
So evaluation isn't just a performance metric, it's a governance mechanism.
Precisely. And that brings us to MCP servers, Model Context Protocol servers, which are increasingly central to multi-agent architecture. They standardize how agents communicate with tools and data sources. In 2026, enterprises using MCP are able to scale their multi-agent systems more reliably because the communication is standardized, auditable, and less prone to failure modes. It also makes compliance easier because you can trace exactly which agent called which tool when.
I want to get practical for a moment. If I'm a financial services company in Utrecht and I want to deploy a multi-agent system for compliance monitoring and risk assessment, what's my roadmap? Where do I actually start?
Start with an AI lead architecture assessment. That's a governance-first process where you map out which decisions are high risk, which require human oversight, what your compliance obligations actually are. Then design your agents around those constraints, not after the fact. Map out your orchestration layer. How will agents communicate? What prevents conflicts? Where are human intervention points? Build RAG evaluation into your development process. Use MCP servers to standardize agent tool communication. And engage compliance partners early, not as an afterthought. The goal isn't perfection, it's demonstrating due diligence and continuous improvement.
That sounds like a significant shift in how you'd normally approach AI projects.
It's a complete reframing, honestly. Traditional AI projects say, build the model, see if it works, then worry about governance. Agentic systems in 2026 demand governance-first architecture. It's actually faster overall because you avoid expensive retrofitting and regulatory pushback.
Before we wrap up, what's the biggest misconception you're seeing among enterprises that are exploring agentic AI right now?
That agentic AI is mostly about the AI model. It's not. It's about orchestration, governance, and integration. You can have a mediocre LLM in a well-designed multi-agent orchestration system, and it'll outperform a brilliant LLM in a poorly orchestrated environment. Enterprises that focus on governance architecture instead of just model capability get better results and deploy faster.
That's a really important reframe. Sam, before we go, any final thought for listeners considering this journey?
Start now, not in 6 months. The regulatory environment is clear, the technical best practices are documented, and the competitive advantage is real. Organizations that move now will have mature systems handling millions in value by 2026. Those that wait will be scrambling through compliance audits while their competitors are already optimizing.
Great advice. Thanks, Sam. For everyone listening, this is exactly the kind of deep dive guidance the full article provides. You'll find the complete 2026 guide to agentic AI and multi-agent orchestration in Utrecht on etherlink.ai. It covers architectural patterns, specific compliance requirements, RAG evaluation frameworks, and real implementation strategies. Head over there, read the full piece, and start mapping your roadmap. I'm Alex. This has been Etherlink AI Insights. Thanks for tuning in.